Hey everybody, welcome to the Inside Tabletop GMG channel. If you're wondering why there's now a separate YouTube channel for Inside Tabletop, it's because the algorithm, as of 2025, no longer responds to subscriber counts and or view counts for putting things up in the algorithm, and my content's getting buried. That means that GMG is basically collapsing financially and subscriber and view count wise, and I now have to play around with the new, after 20 years, and different AI generated version of content creation, which tailors specific kinds of content because the AI can't understand how a channel can enjoy more than one thing. And we're creating 5 new YouTube channels for you to subscribe to. Please subscribe, because if you don't, they can't be monetized and this whole enterprise fails immediately. Inside Tabletop is, of course, the series in which I talk to people who work inside the gaming industry about working in the gaming industry to give you guys some insight behind the curtain into what it's like working in this world, making money, making games, making art, and generally surviving by the skin of our teeth to bring you guys the entertainment that you so crave. So please subscribe. I'll be reposting all the previous Inside Tabletops here for you to enjoy, and new ones in the future. So sit back, relax, let the people chat, and holler at your boy. So, when was the last time you bought a car?
Oh man, 3 years ago. I try to buy them as
infrequently as possible.
Yeah,
my problem is that buying a car, it's harder and harder to buy a car where I can fix and maintain the things that I want to fix and maintain myself, with like a diagnostic computer and stuff like that. So I tend to keep cars longer and longer because they're more like, I'm buying used cars that I will then try and fit. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of buying a used car just because it's got an accessible engine block, basically?
Well, exactly. I don't know if I'm just like a really young boomer, but like I find the like technology of it all very grotesque almost. Because
unnecessary.
It's like I have my like back door just like closing on me all the time while I'm trying to load it and stuff, and I'm just like, I'm picturing Elon Musk's face and just I want to throw darts at it. And I'm just like you're everything I hate in this world.
Over-engineered
garbage.
I hate all of this. Well, speaking of which, hi everybody.
Oh no.
Welcome to another Inside Tabletop. I'm here with Chris from Loads of War Games and Hobbies, also the Loads of War Games and Hobbies YouTube channel, blowing up the internet with the greatest moderate clickbait of all time, the most disappointing clickbait of all time.
You're like, oh, this is gonna be a real
humdinger. They're really gonna give it to Games Workshop this time. Hey guys,
let's talk about positive things.
I just want to experience the rage of someone who's really in their feelings. They're really in their ego, and they really want someone to agree with them that like things were just better before and this is terrible, and they click on one of your like completely ironic clickbait
they open the chamber and they're like expecting so much echo, and it's just like
it's just not at all.
The breeze is going the other way.
It's just someone going you're not special. It just makes me very happy. It makes me laugh. But if you've never seen Inside Tabletop before, this is my show where I get my friends and former coworkers and former lovers together so that we can hang out and talk about everything to do with the inside of the tabletop industry, because we've all worked in this for way too fucking long at this point.
Way too long.
Way too fucking long for me. I'm almost at a quarter decade. Next year's a quarter decade.
Is it really? Yeah.
Next year's 25 years. Whew, this is gonna be a lot.
Yeah, you got like 6 years on me.
I know. You're hitting your 20.
But my thing is like the special thing about my time is that I never went above like trench sergeant.
Yeah, you're the permanent CO.
So I'm just stuck in the trench.
Yeah, you're just forever up to your neck in blood and guts.
So I relate really well to the like 60-year-old guy who's running a hobby store still and just doesn't want to look at you in the eyes.
No, he's just dead inside.
Like I get that guy.
That guy dressed like George R. R. Martin, just reading his model trains magazine, just completely.
That comic book is not for you.
Goes into his fanny pack to get his Tums out.
That's right.
So the reason I have Chris here typically for talking about tabletop stuff is Chris sits in an interesting, I would say, nexus point in between manufacturers and the consumer, but you're also a consumer. So because you run a game store, you own a game store, and you have for 10 years now, and a very interesting 10 years in this industry too, which is, I would say, probably one of the most transitory times inside tabletop gaming, where everything that we kind of believed 10 years ago isn't necessarily true anymore. And things that were pillars 10 years ago aren't necessarily pillars anymore. So you offer a really unique perspective, which you guys can see more of on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Loads of War Games and Hobbies, where you guys do like these Monday morning coffee breaks basically and talk about this stuff as it comes up almost. But today we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to me, because I've been doing this whole push about accessibility in tabletop gaming. I'm really concerned about where the next generation of gamers are going to come from. Because almost selfishly, because that generation of gamers is also going to be the generation of designers. You don't end up making this stuff without at some point experiencing it. So for this whole thing to keep going and for me to get entertained by cool, new, interesting things, someone has to join,
of course,
and have that experience. So I very much am concerned with how that happens. And I had you on today to talk about starter sets.
Starter sets. What are those even anymore?
Well, for some companies, they're very much an old classic thing.
Maybe we should do like a little bit of like, what do they used to be?
Well, we're gonna do a whole timeline thing here. You're gonna listen to some storytelling.
The way back.
Yes and no. The way back, but also some inside the industry stuff. From when I was a director at Games Workshop, right? Like being a sales director meant that like you had to understand the why of stuff a lot, because when you were dealing with people who were at the end stage, talking to the consumer, and you're training them, and you're developing in between that trainers to go do training for them. You have to understand why things need to be a certain way from the top down for the big plan. And the reason this is top of mind for me right now, and we just came off doing a video, which you guys can go and watch, it'll be in the cards, about launch boxes and Games Workshop's most recent launch box, which is the Warhammer Age of Sigmar one, and how that is very specifically not a starter set. It's not an evergreen product. And so when we say starter set, what we mean is if I walked up to a shelf and found this thing, I could have the experience it intends the consumer to have out of the box.
Yep.
Right? I could open the box. It would teach me what I need to know. It would have the pieces in it to play. And I'd be able to complete the loop of whatever the intended cycle of gameplay experience is. In tabletop wargaming, it's build, paint, play. In board games, it's usually assemble, play, right? Like you have a loop that goes from beginning to end. And so starter set is code basically for an introductory product. I think it introduces people to stuff. And there's a disturbing trend right now between these launch boxes, which the market leader is making, which is Games Workshop, and also their tiered starter set system. So they have what's called a ultimate starter set, a starter set, and then
introductory
set.
Or recruit, whatever they
set.
call it. Whatever
it's
they
like
call
recruit veteran ultimate edition, basically.
They change the name sometimes.
They've done them for Warhammer 40,000. They did them for Dominion in AOS 3. They actually did them after the Dominion box came out. And they've done it again for Skaven Tide. So the Skaven Tide box was a launch box, no dice, no measuring stick. Well, there kind of weirdly was in the Spearhead section. But overall, it's not designed to stay on the shelf. It's designed to sell out to people who already know what AOS is. And it's being replaced by these 3 tiers of starter set. So the reason I want to talk about it today is there are gold standards, I think, in what a starter set can do. And there's 2 key elements. There's one, the product design. Does it include everything you need for the experience in a single location?
Yep.
2, how is that material sort of parsed so that what I call Christmas morning test of how quickly do you complete that loop and how comprehensively, how is it performed? So does it have the stuff? And with the stuff that was selected, how quickly do you complete the loop of getting around?
Would you qualify that as almost like experience or experiential?
No, because it's part of the product design.
Okay.
You have to know what needs to go into it.
Right.
So not only is it all there, but is it all there in a way that promotes me completing that cycle?
Okay.
Right, that gets me through it. And the third key element, and I'm going to add here, is it needs to be a loss leader. You need to be able to take a chance on this monetarily and feel like you have good value in that thing. You need to be able to intrinsically look at it and go, that's a lot of stuff for that money.
And just to kind of hook onto that, like the theory being that like it's literally designed to promote everything else.
That's it.
Yeah.
So the goal behind an introductory product is that once you've completed that experience, you are hungry for more and you go and you buy additional stuff. Yeah. So let's compare and contrast. Let's do a greatest hits. I'm going to tell you we can go back and forth. I'm going to tell you my number one. You're probably going to agree with me. My number one all time, any miniature wargame experience starter set, X-Wing.
Oh, was it 2008?
It was 2008, 2009, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that could be right.
It was right when I moved to the US, remember?
Okay.
Because I had to stop you guys at meetings
this
playing
is how
X-Wing.
good it was. Is all the Games Workshop managers were busting out their X-Wing sets and playing.
I'm running.
I'll remind you in the evening during our free time.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm fighting to let you do it first of all, because you guys. Yeah. Well, what's funny is we used to have conversations about, well, I shouldn't be playing that. And I was like, why not?
Yeah.
They should absolutely be playing it so they can talk to their customers who are coming in and talking about it in an educated way.
For sure. Yeah.
So let them play it. Who
But
gives a shit?
at the same
That's a
time,
whole
we
other
completely
conversation.
understand why there was like,
Yeah.
why can't they be playing one of our games?
I think it was 08, 09. It might have been 2010, 2011.
It could
Anyway,
be.
around the end of the aughts, the beginning of the 2010s, we have X-Wing come out. It's $45 Canadian.
So cheap.
Had a complete gameplay loop, pre-painted miniatures. You got to feel like you're flying spaceships in 10 minutes. So it hit all those criteria. It was a loss leader, right? It included everything you need to play the game.
Yep.
And it was so well organized that you were just popping tokens and playing inside of 10 minutes. You could open that box and in 10 minutes you'd be playing the game. Read the rulebook, playing the game. Super easy to do. So it hits all those notes. That's one of my greatest hits classics. But what happened? You couldn't keep that thing in stock. It was a absolute lightning in a bottle. Everybody wanted it. Distributors were selling out. People were begging to get copies of it. You couldn't get it anywhere. And every release that Fantasy Flight Games did of X-Wing for like 6 months to a year afterwards was just gangbusters. Guaranteed sell. People were super excited about it. Massive tournaments.
It was nuts.
Huge.
It was nuts.
It was the biggest.
Pandemonium.
It was the biggest miniature wargaming release of that I'd say 5 to 10 year period.
Oh, without a doubt.
It was number one in I think it beat 40K actually.
I remember all the
couple times.
I remember all the big shops like had walls of like TIE fighter expansions, like literal walls, like covered in them. Like you could not.
But even in the trades, like even in what's it called? SVG. What is it called? The one that tracks sales monthly of. There's a trade magazine basically that talks to distributors about what was the highest turnover for a monthly period. It was beating 40K some months for overall sales, just for like dollars put through. And the months it wasn't, it was because they couldn't get stock.
I could see that. Yeah,
right.
Totally.
If there was a big stock run, it would be like it would just blow through. So anyway, that's my number one. Did you have any classics you can think of as being greatly composed?
It's not that old, but it to me it encapsulates all those things you just said, and it's one of my personal favorite products ever. Is the Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire set.
100%. Yeah. It was a loss leader. I think it was $65 Canadian.
No, it was whatever it was. It was dirt cheap.
Yeah,
it was well under $100.
Mm-hmm. And you and I played that game out of the box. Like I painted everything.
There was assembly, but like it was about as quick of a model as you could build reasonably.
It was based off the X-Wing model. It was definitely,
100%,
they took the X-Wing model 100%. And they said like, let's make an arena game like this in this mindset that we can get on the table almost instantly.
And it was awesome.
It was fun.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because both those games almost collapsed under the weight of the expansions versus the initial offering being so good and so fun.
Yeah.
So my second greatest hit, I'm going to go to Games Workshop now. I'm going to say this is probably the best one of these they ever did, was the Battle for Skull Pass. Warhammer Fantasy Battle. It was the 7th edition box set. It had a beautiful Night Goblin army in it. It had a beautiful dwarf army in it of modern looking dwarves. It kind of reset the look of dwarf miniatures in the Warhammer Fantasy Battle line. Super comprehensive. Everything you need to play was in the box. And it was the Warhammer Fantasy experience. It was the best designed Warhammer Fantasy Battle starter set. They did a very good additional version with Island of Blood. Island of Blood was fine, but this was the first time they had full with characters, wound markers, terrain, all that stuff in the box set. And it was all plastic miniatures. And it felt like you were playing Warhammer out of the box. So I'm not going to downplay Island of Blood. It's a great starter set. But because it was first, because it was cheaper, the Skull Pass box sold better than I think any Warhammer started sold.
Yeah, I want to say $75 or something like that. Like it was crazy.
It was 75, 85 bucks
cheap.
Back then.
Crazy
and
cheap.
Like they sold like crazy. And it is, I think it stands the test of time as one of the most comprehensive and best designed to do what it did because the models were push fit for the first time ever.
It's probably as good as you can get a Warhammer Fantasy starter set.
That's right.
Like how complex that game is.
Exactly. Exactly. And it actually brought Warhammer Fantasy onto a lower shelf.
Exactly.
Whereas the push fit kits that were in Skull Pass were quick to put together.
It's a good point.
And they competed in that second category where they basically shortened the gameplay loop for putting these things together. Do you have any other ones you can think of?
I always go back just because I was with Workshop at the time and it was so huge. I always go back to Black Reach.
Yeah.
Assault on Black Reach.
It was the 40K version of Skull Pass.
That was just a bonkers set. Like value. The miniature, to me, it was when starter set miniatures got cool.
Yeah.
For the first time. Because there were always kind of, I think for a period there, they were like always trading quality
Yep.
a little bit there. And for me, this was the first time you got the full experience of like this tactical marine and this orc. You can put him in the units off the shelf and you'll lose him because he's that cool.
Yeah.
You got the wicked character models, the captain with a sword like this.
Awesome power claw.
That guy was
that war boss.
Awesome. One of the greatest
and
war
you have
bosses
vehicles
ever.
for the first time too. I mean, you got a land speeder in 3rd edition, but you got the Death Copters.
But you're like to
Dreadnought.
the other point. It's like that's not a star set. You got to build a land speeder. Oh my god.
That's it. Yeah.
That person's not coming back to the hobby.
That's right. And it's not an army. There's no characters. It's just a squad of Space Marines and a land speeder versus 20 Dark Eldar.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't have that same loop of stuff. Now, 100%.
They had great names too. Like the names matter, man. Like Assault on Blackreach, Island of Blood.
They were narratively driven. They had those great booklets in them that told a story while you learn the rules. So you put everything together and then you walk through playing the game through that book. And they each had those A5 complete rule books. So you had a complete copy of the rules in these little A5. And you and I, that's what we carried with us to games. We didn't carry the big hardcover rule books to games. We used our starter set rule books because they were the same book in this like ultra compact format that you could just take wherever you want.
A useful thing people want.
That's right. And that also that added value to the box that people would try and buy it. I remember people buying the rule books off of people like that already had the game. They're like, I want the starter set, but I definitely want that rule book if you don't want to have it.
Yeah.
So those are some greatest hits of what we're talking about when we say starter sets. Can you think of some companies that are doing it well today? Because what's funny is I always bang on when I see one that I think is really good, but they become more and more rare. People tend to not put out 2-player starter sets anymore, or introductory sets, versus having like people are going to want to choose what they want. So we'll just put out all model kits in a rule book instead. And there's a lot less, it's a lot less common that people do that, or if they do it, it doesn't stay. Mm-hmm. So like, for instance, I think that the Corvus Belli Infinity 2-player introductory boxes are really good, but they do them seasonally and they're gone.
Yes.
Right? Which is fine. It's a way of doing it, but they don't have like a persistent one. They have ones that come and go. And every company kind of does that.
They're kind of trying to have their cake and eat it too a little bit there, I think.
Where they launch new miniatures through them sometimes. They resculpt old miniatures.
It's like a launch box and a starter set in a way that way, I guess.
So it's not as persistent versus... I look at, for instance, the Battletech Alpha Strike rulebook or 2-player introductory box, and I go, "That's a great example. You get terrain,
super solid.
You get measuring sticks, you get dice, you get 2 armies worth of miniatures, you get a rule book, and it's very comprehensive and it's very competitively priced. I think at like 65 US, like 75 Canadian.
Yeah, it's definitely under $100.
And that's a super fast gameplay because the miniatures are already assembled, so you can just crack that box and be playing inside of like 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
And what's funny is you have an older group of designers going, well, what should an introductory box look like? Making something like that versus people kind of trying to reinvent the wheel with introductory boxes today and have different ways of doing it.
Yeah, I think there's not many anymore, like you said, that are really good. I actually really like D&D's starter set. It's like $30 or under $30.
The introductory one, the Stormwreck Isle, I think is the current one.
Stormwreck Isle, and they give you like some pre-generated characters, pretty easy to run adventure, some dice, and you can just like open the box and not know anything about D&D and basically play within like a few minutes, like start playing the game basically. And I think that's what you're trying to do.
What's really funny is we had a company come out swinging 5 years ago, with the Marvel Crisis Protocol starter set that was under $100, and then release a new edition of it and totally forget that it needed to be.
I'm super glad you brought that up because you're right. That first starter box for Marvel Crisis Protocol,
fantastic box,
amazing box,
everything you need to play.
They took it to the 10th degree because they had. Well, I will push back a little bit and say like the miniatures were not easy to build.
No.
So like they missed that part of it. I think
they got better at that over time.
They did,
but for a sophomore,
but they had like the
product,
terrain in there and stuff, like unreal.
It provided the gameplay experience it wanted to provide.
Yeah.
It was missing some components, but it was a loss leader, and it gave you like the time to complete the loop. You're right, is longer than I would have liked it to be.
Sure.
But for a sophomore product, they made a very competent introductory box their first run through. And then when they remade it, gave you basically the same stuff and took it way too high on the shelf all of a sudden. It stopped being an introductory product in my mind. It's not even an intro product anymore. It's just a lot
of people pick it up and they're like, this is cool. And then they flip it over and they're like, that's the price. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's no longer an introductory box. They don't have an introductory box anymore. They just have this big box.
Which is insane for a game. I'm going to say this really slowly. Insane for a game where you have a couple of heroes fighting a couple of heroes or villains. no starter set. Like that's crazy to me, right?
You need to have
and
a
they'll
loss
argue,
leader.
oh no, that's a starter. It's not really accomplishing that anymore.
It
Like,
can't, it's not introductory box.
They could have something that's like $50 or $70 and be way better for that, right? Like, yeah.
They could make battle boxes with like a 3-on-3
Yep.
and have it be way better, especially when you're selling $60 individual miniatures in plastic. You just want as many people in that ecosystem.
You're able to
as possible.
start that, right?
Yeah.
That's really the
if
thing.
I was
Yeah.
if I was the
Yeah.
if I was the sales manager for them, I would be like, no, we want to go wide. Because as soon as they complete their forces, they're spending $200-300 on their favorite heroes.
That's right.
We just want to get as many comic book fans as we want playing this game.
Yep.
Forever, please.
Yes.
Because we're never going to run out of comic book shit to make.
Yeah.
So there's some examples of current ones. And now, why are we having this meeting today? Well, we're going to talk about what the biggest player in the pond, Games Workshop, one company is doing, where they're releasing a tiered starter set system.
You said something interesting to me earlier today, and you were talking. You did bring this up at the beginning of the video about cars.
Well, this is what I said.
Yeah.
This is why that's a plant and payoff, man. You're spoiling my plant and payoff. You're spoiling the whole plant and payoff. It's the whole thing, man. It's all the comedy, it's all the timing. So you want to buy a car? Well, there's two methodologies to make an introductory product. There's the one we just talked about, and that's the tried, tested, and true old way of doing it. You have a loss leader product. It's a curated bunch of contents, and those contents are fit for purpose to complete the gameplay loop to get as many people in as possible. Right? We've talked about this in a couple other videos, but would you rather have 100 customers spending $50, buying $50 for stuff a month, or 50 customers buying $100 for the stuff a month who might leave? The goal behind an introductory product is to increase your customer count and recruit people in the hobby. Why am I invested in that? I want more people experiencing this so they keep making cool shit. And when I'm 100 years old, I can still buy cool, new, innovative things that people have come up with.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about 3 starter sets and how that's designed. So I talked about cars, and I'm going to compare those 3 starter sets now and how they've been designed as products and how that flies in the face of all the traditional introductory box design that we're talking about and why I have a problem with it. Is what they've done is they've created a 3-tiered product system based purely on the scarcity model. It's not based on the customer experience. The product is still curated that way, but it's tiered the same way that you will walk into a car showroom and have 3 different levels of car. You will test drive the ultimate edition of a car with all the bells and whistles, got everything in it, moonroof, Sirius satellite radio, seat warmers, cup holders. It does everything except for give you a hand job when you start the car, right? That's what you're going to test drive. That's the top level of these starter sets, right? It's as close to a complete game experience as you're going to get in the front end. The middle one, that's your not economy car. It's your mostly all the features of their car. 90% of the time, that's what people buy. And then you got your economy car at the bottom. It'll get you there. It's a basic level of the experience.
They like take things out of that version.
Yeah.
Like to make it like not
to make
attractive.
it a worse deal almost.
Yeah.
Right?
It's almost and they don't really want people buying that. Like you can always tell.
They don't.
You know?
They want you to buy the middle one.
Yeah.
They're going to produce more of the middle one. They're going to produce less of the top and bottom one. The bottom one's just there to get you to buy something. The top one's there to dangle all the bell and whistles at you. And if they got lucky, they get you to buy right away because you go, well, it's the best. I want to have the best.
Yep.
I hate that product is designed that way because no matter what happens now, you're having 3 different initial experiences with something. You get one chance to get people into a hobby that's this hard and have them complete the loop. Now you have 3 different possibilities of how that loop's going to get completed. I might start with too much stuff that's very intimidating and never actually get it done. I might have the Goldilocks zone of just the right amount of stuff curated the right way, or I might have too little and then walk into the game store and say, why can't I play this game? I just spent money on it. So we have 3 different possible outcomes based upon what we're buying initially. And the worst part is, instead of having to now train your sales staff and your middlemen like you on how to go, hey, we made this great new thing to introduce people to this hobby, you have to train them how to start at the expensive end and then back up and back up and back up to get something. It's a product design with a scarcity mindset versus being designed with those 3 pillars basically of loss leader price, value, loss leader price value, gameplay, like the loop, the possibility of the loop, and the components being what are needed to experience the game.
And just to add on to your point, like the interesting thing about that kind of particular sales model is that it usually occurs in a vacuum, in the sense that a car dealership, the people working there have very specific sales training on how to execute something like that. And Games Workshop employees also will be given really specific training on how to execute something like that. More than 2/3 of the business of Games Workshop now is done through trade stores.
Yep. So now who do they have to train to do that? And that's what and we come back to that annual report. This is why I have a problem with this model for creating introductory products for them. Because you're the one that's going to end up having to do that. And they're forcing it. They're either saying, don't order 2 of these. Because if I was in your position, I would just order the middle one. I would never order the other ones, period, ever.
Well, this is where all of our videos somehow tie together today, because the wonderful thing about trade being that place where that's got to happen is you also have a location where we also happen to be sitting on another level of starter set, launch box, that somehow sticks around for a really long period of time.
Yep.
Right.
So now those are in the mix.
Those are there. So a person running a shop, maybe isn't. You have to keep in mind the average trade store. The guy isn't necessarily, or woman isn't necessarily the most experienced with Games Workshop. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't even do the hobby themselves.
It's
right?
There's a whole.
They could be a card
kaleidoscope
store, right?
of different possibilities of how much that person knows about tabletop gaming.
And with them, they're often going to be like, well, I already have the launch, like all these launch boxes. They're still here. Like, I kind of want to sell that. Maybe I'm not even going to bring in these other 3 or whatever, right? Or they're just going to get put behind or tossed off to the side somewhere. Or they don't necessarily have the same importance that they should have. Yeah. Spotlight, etc. Right? Because like you're missing that. There's that training part that's missing to this sales tactic, right? That a little tangent. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. But that's where you have this risk created.
Right.
So if I go back to lightning in a bottle. Right. If I go back to what I consider to be the best curated and designed version of an introductory box ever, it's not made by Games Workshop. It's made by Fantasy Flight. Right. How much training did it require anyone to sell it? None. Because that's the thing that you're trying to do. You're trying to create something that introduces people to your product line. You're trying to grow the number of people that get exposed to it and maybe get through that first experience and go, God, this is fun. God, this is something that's for me.
Right.
And sure, you take the hobby side away with that, you've got a whole different hurdle taken away.
Of course.
But there's, for a company that's 40 years old to forget that that's important really bothers me. And to do it simply so that you can have a product designed to maximize the potential that you make money now versus maximizing the potential that the person experiencing it has the best possible experience and stays with you.
Yep.
You get one chance to make a first impression. And that first impression needs to be the goal. And people will say, yeah, but Ash, those products are curated in that way. They do get you, they're very well designed internally.
Yes.
They get you what you need to play. They have push fit miniatures. They do all the things you're talking about. They do. But if the person talking to me about them can't get me the right one and doesn't know which one's the right one, I'm on my own to have that experience.
There's also something like, I don't know, and I don't even know what the right word is for it, but like if I was getting into a hobby, there's something about like, if you have 4 options in front of you as where to start. Like, does it feel bad to leave with the bottom one? Like, do you feel good about getting that? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of emotions are you creating that person?
That's right.
Like, do they settle for it because they had to? There used to be a time when like this is the box. Oh, you don't have enough money? Well, you should save up for it and get it next month because you really should get this box.
If you buy one thing,
because this experience is worth it, right?
And how many times did you and I have to talk out someone being like, well, just get a box of Space Marines? It's like, you really should just save up for this instead. Because this is going to come with a box of Space Marines, but also you're going to get to have the whole experience. Yeah. So I could sell you Space Marines today and say, thanks for the $45. 10 Space Marines were $45 back then. But that's not what I want to do. I want you to actually get to try this. To do that thing that we just did in that introductory game that you just played with me, I want you to be able to have that experience again on your own. And this isn't going to give you that. So save your money, come back on Sunday, we'll play another game, you can hang out, you can paint another free miniature, whatever it is you want to do, and let's introduce you to this hobby. And it really bothers me that that's so confused now. And those launch boxes get in the way of that too, because the most excited someone's going to be about giving this a try is when it first comes out.
That's it.
And you've diffused all that excitement now into 2-3 months later where there's these 3 other boxes. And for you as an independent retailer, that's even worse. How excited are you going to be about these 3 starter sets when they come out, when you've just basically been beaten over the head with launch boxes for 3 months, and that was the end all be all.
Yep.
So there's a real, I think, just disconnected understanding for a company that used to be so good at making these to now have such a weird plan for them that's purely based upon a tried and true textbook car dealership version of sales. It's very strange.
It's the old adage of like just trying to galaxy brain something that just doesn't need.
It doesn't need to be this complicated. And here's my proof as to why it doesn't need to be this complicated. One of Hasbro's best-selling things right now is HeroQuest. That's a 40-year-old game. And that game is basically unchanged.
Yeah.
HeroQuest has new miniatures in it. It's the same fucking game. So if they can take a 40-year-old game and sell the absolute shit out of it 40 years later, then you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just have the right experience and the right singular product. And then you can add to it forever. And God, are they. Hasbro's pumping out HeroQuest expansions like crazy right now. And they all look great. And it's a simple game. And it's on a low shelf. And it's not necessarily as cheap as it used to be.
No.
But it wasn't cheap the first time around. It was almost $100. It was the cost of a Nintendo when I got it in the 80s.
Yep.
And it's 200 something bucks right now. And still comes with a ton of stuff. So when it comes to being the leader in doing things and having people emulate you, people are emulating Games Workshop starter sets from 10, 15 years ago and getting it right and having a lot of success with it. Why can't Games Workshop just do that anymore? I need someone to be able to tell me why it's better to create a product line with fallback positions to have a good sales conversation versus just making a singular great product that you are proud of and that you can tell everybody top down, all your salespeople, in a simple communicable message why this is the best box to try this out for the first time to grow the amount of people that want to give it a go. I don't understand what the two value is. You can make an equal amount of money doing those things, and doing it the old way is way less complicated. You print less packaging, you produce less things, you pack less things, you ship less things. You can do it once really well or 4 times right now to seemingly like, I don't know, way less impact in my mind.
And I can tell you what happens, like for sure, and I'm sure in some of these Games Workshops, you probably have great salespeople and you have like not so great salespeople. The great salespeople are probably selling a lot of Ultimate starter sets because they're able to really talk people up to it, right? And people that are, not as confident will talk themselves down to selling more just of the recruit editions, right? Just like cars, like it is ultimately the customer's experience is resting on the strength of the salesperson that they're interacting with at the end of the day. Not the product itself, right? Not the question of like, what do we actually want this person entering into and taking home?
And to have that experience. What do we want that experience to be?
They used to guard that experience so carefully. Like it was treasured, right? Yeah. It's a reason why like I have customers that come in still to this day and like, I haven't done the hobby in 15 years, but I was rummaging through my basement and I saw at my mom's house that she had my old miniatures and I saw my Assault on Black Reach models and I was like, oh man, I got to do this again. Like those sets were special.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had resonance to them.
And people took a chance on them because they weren't that expensive.
Exactly.
Because they were $65, $75 back then. And that even in that time's money wasn't that bad.
And what I say earlier, like, don't you, it sounds silly, but like, don't you want to have as much Warhammer rediscovered in as many basements as possible for the next 10, 20 years, right? Because inevitably this is one thing that happens in the hobby is it has a high attrition rate.
Of course it does.
Insanely high because it's just a hard hobby.
It's the hardest way to do anything, especially when it's competing with people like we for years, you and I have had to put up with like, but the video games are going to kill the tabletop industry. It's like, they're not because that's a different person.
Yeah.
There's people that want to be entertained. There's people that have a need to express themselves through the things that entertain them.
100%.
Just two different types of people.
And we only know that because we are those people.
Yeah,
that's the best way you know.
Exactly. Like, I don't mind playing video games.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing video games, but I enjoy playing video games where I express myself through the medium of playing video games. I enjoy video games that are like long expressions of exploration and discovery, like the Fallouts. You know what I mean? Where like, by the end of it, you've got this like this person that you've pieced together through all these experiences that you've created that you feel individually with. Yep. Versus I'm not just into to be like dopamine rewarded by another 15-second round of Call of Duty. That's not what I'm there for. You know what I mean? My ego doesn't need that.
And to cycle back to the starter sets, like even just calling it starter set, there was something there too, right?
Yeah.
Like there's something in a name, like in not having a name, and it just being a generic thing that they've lost something there too. I think some of the magic, right? I don't know. I think you see like the new Corvus Belli game coming out, Winds from the North or whatever. Like
Winds from the North.
It's got a name. It's got a name. I'm somewhere when I hear that immediately.
Yeah, it's got a name. It's got a table full of terrain. It's got miniatures in it. It's got instructor.
Warhammer 40K starter set. What's in it? Like what is that? Right? Like who's fighting who? Like I don't know. It's just
yeah. I want Showdown at Megalopolis or something. You know what I mean? Like give me some like. Yeah, give me something that you're proud of that you talk about. I want to feel like I'm included. I'm experiencing something.
What was your
special.
first memorable 40K box that you got? Oh, it was Warhammer 40K starter set.
I mean,
you're like
that's
the
second edition starter set was just called Warhammer 40,000. It didn't have a name. They didn't know enough about that back then, right?
I did also get that box. But it's also not one of my favorite products.
It's also not one of my favorite products. You're right. It might be the product I interacted with the most because that's what it was back then. It was a prototype for doing these types of things.
For sure.
But I think there's a reason that some of the oldest, most sort of like well-regarded games haven't really messed with the model of making an introductory box and having those 3 key components. And I think that there's a need to get back to that. And I think that you can make this. I think the problem is convincing forecasters and money people that it's worth having products that you could sell for less to get more of them sold, and that we will make the same money but more long term the more of these people buy. Because it's very hard to convince people outside the quarter that they're in, but I could just sell this for more and we'd make more money. Yes, but we're not trying to make more money now. We're trying to make more money forever. And I honestly think that's the conversation that needs to be had internally inside these companies. And I'm not excluding Asmodee because I think that that's what happened with that 2-player starter set for Marvel.
Yeah.
Is I think they said they had that conversation that said, well, what does Games Workshop sell their starter sets for? Let's price it the same. We sell a premium product. What are the ultimate starter set?
You're following an industry in the wrong direction.
And you're following an industry in the wrong direction at that point, right? Yeah. Versus going, we want to make more money forever by increasing the number of people that interact with this stuff. And I think that's a real internal dialogue that needs to happen the next time one of these things comes out as to what is an introductory box for, how many of these do you make and why, and what does it mean long term for our business, the way that we approach introducing people into these products. There's a reason why for a long time iPhones made those iPhone lights. Yeah. They just wanted to get people in the smartphone ecosystem. And they stopped doing them because everybody has an iPhone now.
Yes.
But in the beginning, when people weren't trying iPhones, they literally made a budget version of the iPhone in cool colors because they wanted to have a loss leader introductory product. There's a reason why they packaged certain games in the original Nintendo Entertainment System. They packaged probably the greatest introductory to video games of all time, which is Super Mario Bros. 1-1, because it taught you what video games are in a very elegant manner. And there's a reason in game theory school they teach you about 1-1 and how it is intrinsically one of the best designed introductory products of all time. There's no mystery here. There's just approaching it from the point of view of, do I want to introduce somebody to something they're going to be with long term versus do I want to make money right now? And to me, that is the heart and soul of what are introductory products in this industry and why they're so important and why they're important to you, and then why they should be important to the manufacturer. Because if the manufacturer makes something that's harder for you to sell, then they are jeopardizing the long-term viability of the product lines that they make.
Well, and just to kind of tap that off, we have the time of most excitement for people that may start AOS for the first time is right at the start of the edition. And you put the bigger wall in front, right? So instead of leading with like the starter set, that's $130 or $125 or whatever, that like opens up the biggest door for people to get into it for the first time, right? So and like you said, when it finally hits the shelves, a month later or 6 weeks later, it's like forgotten about, right? And it's not that we don't sell them to people because we're like, oh, you want to get into the game, this is a great box for you. It's that you don't have the help of the excitement to push more people in.
And the excitement's about something else. Because that machine's so big, it's talking about something else.
Exactly.
If you want me to take a chance on AOS, you had your chance.
Yeah.
Now you're talking to me about everything else. You're talking to me about 40K, talking to me about, Imperial Agents, you're talking to me about crazy ass, Necromundas and all kinds of things that have nothing to do with AOS. Yep. So my attention, you are now driving elsewhere. You had your chance to get me in the door, And releasing these star sets now doesn't do that. You're banking on someone else doing that work later on. So you really are, I think, working against yourself in a way, right at the product design point of view.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. As opposed to just making one thing that's very well curated to sell forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being emulated, like we said, with other companies making these big $250, $300 boxes.
Well, even
Shatterpoint has never had a version
they
like
never
the
had
first Marble had.
They're so focused on making this like finished product that like you can, and you're just like, but like no one, the amount of people that are willing to try it for that price, it's a big ask.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big ask for sure.
Well, they're banking on the thing that gets you through the door being just that it says Star Wars on it.
Yeah.
That's the same with the Marvel thing. They're banking on it.
And you know what? That's fine when it's $45. A lot of people will just be like, yeah, I'll roll the dice for that much.
Let's go. Yeah.
But for $220 or $250 or whatever they cost, it's a big ask.
It's a higher shelf, man.
Yeah.
Less people are going to reach that high.
Yeah.
That's it. You're carving out the number of people that get in and try it. And once you try it and you experience the loop, that's your best possible chance of keeping them as customers. So, well, there it is. Starter sets, and why I'm mad about them, and why I think you should just make one really good thing and not 4 things that are designed to leverage a sales conversation backwards to make some kind of money the first time you meet somebody. I hate scarcity mindset product design, and I think that it's counter to the overall good of this industry.
And especially when applied to this type of stuff. I think, with something that has so much soul and art and creativity and asks something so much from the customer too. Not just their money, but their time and their
time
life
and their investment and work.
I think you have to care more about that. Absolutely.
I think you have to care about the success rate at which people stay, right? It can't be a short-term investment in your plan. Your plan needs to be long-term. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be long-term in a way that fits every step in the process. Because I think it's a great product.
Of course.
Super well designed.
We always get back to that. Yeah, that's the thing. All the products are great. They're great products. Yeah.
The actual core of what Warhammer is right now is great at every level. It's just how it's being delivered, and you sitting in this interesting place where you have to be the go-between with the manufacturer and the customer. Man, just why to make it harder? How many Ultimate Star sets you can order?
We got one.
You got one.
Yeah.
Think about 15, 20 years ago, how many stacks of core games.
Oh yeah, yeah. But they tried to push all that into, Skaven Tide and Leviathan, and it doesn't work exactly the same way. But yeah.
But why couldn't
that's where we're at.
That's the question. Why couldn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, where can people find you? They can find you at YouTube.
If you're so inclined to watch silly videos about hobby stores and all the machinations of that.
Hang your morning coffee. That's right. Listen to the phone ring.
Me trying to upset Jay or whatever every week.
Trying to get him to break character.
Yeah.
You're trying to get him to Jimmy Fallon the whole time. It's my favorite.
Lords of War Games and Hobbies. So youtube.com. Lords of War Games and Hobbies.
And then patreon.com/Lords of War Games and Hobbies. If you want to get the nudes, you can find me in the same game, youtube.com. Well, you're here, but I don't know what the hell you're doing anywhere else. But you can find me on Patreon at patreon.com.
Where am I? I can't find myself.
/Miniature Games. I don't know where you're watching this if you're not already on the YouTube channel, where you can get this as an exclusive podcast stream if you don't want to watch, you want to listen, because obviously not everybody has YouTube Premium, so it's handy to have this just be as a talkie thing, as well as the exclusive Monday morning show / Wednesday show, where we get to hang out and do like Q&As behind the scenes stuff, which is sometime attended by my pals.
That's the best.
As well as other
live
patrons
chats, the best,
stuff too. Yeah. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll be back next week on one of these. And thanks again, Chris, for coming in.
Bye.